Morning, all. All right, so we're starting off today with me talking about the Minnesota Wild. So Matthew Boldy has signed an extension with the Minnesota Wild that kicks in next season. It's worth $7 million per season for 7 years. And you know what? I like that contract a lot. Considering what some players are getting right now, I think with Boldy, now obviously a lot of it's going to be speculation and betting on what he's going to do in the future, but I think it's going to pay off. I think this is a good signing. And this is after the Kaprizov signing. That was a pretty good one, too. Now, at the time Kaprizov signed that deal for $9 million per season, there were plenty of furrowed brows. And, well, he's only done it for 1 year. I'm not sure that he's worth that. The reality is that contracts now are signed based on what you're going to do. It's not based on what you have done. There are certain teams that are still seemingly structuring contracts around what you've done, but in general, most GMs have pivoted to the big money goes towards what you're going to do. So your veterans are still going to get paid, but there's gambling aspect to this, right? So when Kaprizov signs that deal, I mean Minnesota's taking the chance that he can stay healthy, that he can produce just as well year after year. And it feels like it's less of a gamble as each season goes by, but there's still that risk. So obviously with the Boldy signing, there's a risk. Now, what I've got here is I've got what I think is just your untouchable core right now for Minnesota. I have Fleury there because even though Fleury hasn't had the greatest of seasons, I don't see any chance that he gets moved because what are you going to get back? What are you going to do? And again, this is a team that is trying its best to stay within the relevant team's sphere. They're 24, 14, and 4 currently. They are third in the Central Division. They're a very good team. They're a very good team, but do they have what it takes to win a Stanley Cup? That's the question that Bill Guerin's trying to answer in the affirmative, and he's really doubled down on this core. So Zuccarello has a contract that pays him $6 million a year through 2024, so he's about a year and a half left in Minnesota. Eriksson Ek, $5.25 million per season until 2029. Again, at the time Eriksson Ek signs that, there were some furrowed brows and some comments along the lines of, well, I don't think he's worth that, and why would he get that? And I think he's proven he's worth that. I do. Then you've got Foligno, $3.1 million until 2024. Hartman, a very cheap contract at $1.7 million until 2024. On the blue line, you've got Spurgeon at $7.575 million until 2027. Is that high? Not if you watch Spurgeon often enough, it's not. That being said, even if it was a little bit high, it's not bad for a number one defenseman. Brodin, $6 million per season until 2028. Most of the contracts that have been signed by this team have aged pretty darn well. Fleury making $3.5 million till 2024. Again, that's not bad considering the going rate for some goaltenders in the NHL. And it's important to keep those costs down when you've got dead cap money next year and the year after that's going up to $14,743,588. After that, it drops to $1,666,666. So all he has to do, he being Bill Guerin, is get them till 2025 and make sure they stay in contention and they stay relevant, and then you're going to have some serious money to spend in 2025, 2026. Now, considering that's right around where the salary cap is supposed to be really, really high, that could be huge for Minnesota, right? So you keep your young guys, you add to that where you can, and you do your best to keep things competitive. But it's going to be challenging over the next 2 seasons. So they're pending unrestricted free agents. There's Reeves, who makes 1.75, at least his cap hits 1.75 million. I need to specify because if I say they make that, then it makes it sound like that's their salary, and it may not be. Your salary cap is not necessarily, like the cap hit is not necessarily how much money you make. That's a whole other conversation. Freddie Gaudreau, expiring contract worth $1.2 million. I think he's worth more than $1.2 million personally. I like Gaudreau. Dumba, expiring contract now $6 million a year. They don't have the money to keep Dumba. So at this point, unless somebody else goes, they don't really have the money to re-sign Dumba for the kind of money he's going to be looking for. And then on the restricted free agent side, you got Sam Steele. Steele's fit in pretty darn well, which is going to send the asking price up. Duhaime, I like Duhaime, solid bottom six, not going to get a big raise. Mason Shaw, again, you can bridge deal him. But Kalen Addison, Addison's been pretty darn good this year. There very well could be a situation coming up here where he's the next guy. If I was Bill Guerin, the next guy I'd be calling about an extension would be Addison and trying to work that out. Gustafson on an expiring contract, I would probably be trying to work out a bridge deal on Gustafson. Because the thing is, if you can get guys to sign 2-year bridge deals, so if you can get Addison and Gustafson, if you can sit them down and go, look, I got almost $15 million in dead money. You guys sign 2 years, we'll keep you here. Promise, don't worry about it. And 2 years from now, you guys are going to make some pretty good coin, right? And then you can re-sign them to those extensions once you get into the 2024-2025 season, right? So I think there's a way to keep all this together. And part of it is this. You've got an environment right now where the team's winning. You've now signed your core guys to long-term extensions. I think it makes it easier to keep other guys in the fold because you've shown you're willing to pay money to keep these guys together. You're willing to spend big up front. And then you've got other expiring contracts that, okay, so I've got Foligno on the board twice. That was an accident. I meant to keep Foligno in the core. Foligno's not going anywhere, so I don't need Foligno on that part of the board. Fine, if the eraser won't show up, we'll just do that. Now, the ones that may not be in the core, that may end up being moved in order to make space due to the dead cap money, Greenway. It's a $3 million cap hit till 2025. Mixed results with Greenway. And so if he decides, he being Bill Guerin, I need more cap space, because the projected cap space right now for next season is $9,334,785, which sounds like it's a decent chunk of money, but you're going to have to replace these guys. You're going to have to sign some of these guys. It's going to eat into this money. So Greenway's $3 million. Middleton at $2.45 million till 2025, and Goligoski at $2 million till 2024. Those are probably the most movable contracts. So I do apologize to Minnesota fans for putting Foligno on there, because I don't think Foligno's going anywhere. Again, unless Guerin finds himself in a position where he desperately needs cap money, I don't see that happening. I think that with Minnesota, it's probably going to be a couple of more seasons of them being pretty darn good, because Kaprizov's going to make them good. I think there's a solid enough lineup there. Their system, their development is pretty good. Their drafting's pretty good too. So with Minnesota, I don't have any concern that they're going to run out of good players or things are going to fall off the rails. There are other players too. I mean, Rossi's had his setbacks. If Rossi comes around and if that scoring shows up and all that, that could be huge for them. Minnesota still has a few aces in the hole when it comes to the future, when it comes to the present, and I'll be interested to see what they do this summer, because that dead cap, that is a lot of money. That is basically the equivalent of 2 really good players that aren't actually there. That's almost $15 million in cap money that could be used to bring in big names, and it's just not there. But again, you have to nurse that for 2 seasons, and then you get to where it is very much manageable. And between now and then, you have to try to keep it all together. So, let me know your thoughts if you're a Minnesota fan. Does this make you more optimistic about the future? How do you feel about the next couple of seasons after this one? Bill Guerin's ability to keep this team above the playoff line and in contention. And the big thing is, and this is, of course, right after a weekend where the Minnesota Vikings fall out of the playoffs. Trust me, I'm a Chargers fan. I get it. Chargers are never going to win anything. I always tell people that. But teams I cheer for don't generally win. But yeah, for the Minnesota Wild, is this team going to win a Stanley Cup over the next few years? Do you believe in that? Do you believe that when they get to 2025, 2026, if they keep this together, that's when it really hits? How do you feel about the Minnesota Wild right now? If you're a Minnesota fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And yeah, I thought I'd start off today taking a nice look at the Minnesota Wild and that projected cap space of a little under $10 million. And it could be a little dicey to keep everything together without experiencing some kind of drop-off next year. But let me know why you're optimistic or why you're not. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.